Three.
Today is Tuesday, and I'd like to share. My name is Odie Hawkins. I'm here with Zola Salena-Hawkins, my producer, director, provocateur. And I made the statement that last year I read excerpts from books. This year I'd like to read shorter things. And so I go down into my files and come up with something that was kind of extraordinary, even to me. And when people talk about extraordinary things happening in their lives, this can happen in many different ways and for different reasons. Here's what happened. As I've said before on some other occasions, I went to Ghana, West Africa, in 1992 and stayed 3 years. One of the things I did was to write for several newspapers. One of the newspapers was a paper called the Ghanaian Voice, and the publisher of the paper was a man named Charles Anchiam. I came back to the U.S. in 1995, and I was looking for gigs. What can I do to write? I had written for the Ghanaian Voice a column called Longo Longo. Longo Longo means an unincorporated space, which means that the editor, the publisher, was giving me a wide range to just write whatever you want to, and we called it an unincorporated space, like someplace on the outside of Compton or somewhere. Well, I got back here coincidentally after a few months. I found a place. I wound up writing for another African newspaper called the African Times, and the publisher of the newspaper was named Charles Anchiam. Anchiam. Anchiam was Ghanaian, and Anchiam was Nigerian, Igbo to be exact. And it was such a trip because, how often in your life do you wind up writing for two publishers of newspapers thousands of miles away whose names are so similar? And in addition to that, whose attitudes were so similar. Charles Anchiam forced me very often to chase him down to get to pay for my column, Lungu Lungu, and Charles Anchiam also forced me to run him down to get payment for my column. But the deed was done, and so I thought it would be interesting, because history seems to repeat itself. I thought it would be interesting to read some columns from the African Times newspaper.
Yes.
Let me start with how they all began.
Mm-hmm.
The newspaper, the column was called Africa Media Watch. And here's a statement of mission that I wrote to explain. He said, do whatever you have to do and let us know what you're going to do. I explained, we'll play the devil's advocate. As most regular readers of the African Times already know, our newspaper has often devoted columns to a close look at the media, print, television, movies. Media Watch, the brainchild of editor-in-chief Charles Anchiam and writer Odie Hawkins, will set a more deliberate course to study, analyze, and or praise the media as it relates to Africa and the diaspora. We will be going from the radio to the latest website, offering provocative information, creative insights, educational conjuits, and a better understanding of how the big picture and smaller impacts our perceptions of world events. Why is Africa only given marginal attention ordinarily? The interesting thing, I think, and the thing that provokes me to do this, is that history seems to be repeating itself. And here we are right where this was in 1996. The first column was March 1996. Why is Africa only given marginal attention ordinarily and granted major league status for catastrophes, coups, wars, and famines? It might be too simplistic to suggest American media is only interested in African disasters, but a careful weak study of the Los Angeles Times, for example, seems to confirm these suspicions. Many might like to point a prurient finger at racism. They may be right. We'll look at that possibility from different angles. Perhaps papers are programmed to focus on day-to-day tragedies rather than long-range themes. It's quite obvious that most American newspapers feel that they've done enough African stuff since Mandela's election to the South African presidency. Of course, there's never enough OJ updating. We're going back here, right?
Yeah.
Right? We're going back here, right?
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
TV's recent gurgitation of so-called black programs offers us, unfortunately, too much chewing gum for the eyeballs. We will offer praise for well-written, substance-laden programs and give constructive criticisms to those who pander to the lowest common denominator.
Mm-hmm.
Films rather than movies and the essentials to creating excellent films will be discussed. For definitive purposes, a movie can be cloned as a car on an assembly line. Films, as opposed to movies, cannot be cloned. We will never have a genre called Nothing But a Man movie, or Sankofa, or Malcolm X. A film is like a fingerprint. It cannot be duplicated, a la Rocky. We will be examining the journalistic apartheid that has persistently ruled out reviews of African American classical music, jazz, by African American reviewers. What about restaurant reviewers? We eat Thai food too. No major African American drama critics in our city. No major commentator on the state of African American political affairs. Jesse Jackson comes close, but he doesn't appear on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
No sports columnists, no journalistic operas,
Mm-hmm.
no dance company reviewers, no movie, film reviewers,
Mm-hmm.
critics, no African American perspectives on what is happening in Europe, the Middle East, Far East, South America, the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
Some will argue that we haven't had arbiters of our cultural contributions to this society because they weren't there. They are and have been there, but their voices have been artificially muted.
Mm-hmm.
Media Watch proposes to be a devil's advocate. We will not claim to have all the answers. We may have only a few answers, but we will definitely make every effort to arouse as many pertinent questions as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the opening column.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to
High
read-
goals.
Excuse me.
High goals.
Yes, high goals. The bar was high.
Ambitious.
I said it,
Yes. Very good.
and I'm not embarrassed about it
Mm-hmm.
because I find that, look at what we're going through today. You know, in the course of what is happening with in Ukraine, for example,
Mm-hmm.
a brother named Malcolm Nance,
Mm-hmm.
columnist, writer,
Mm-hmm.
who's also a warrior, went to Ukraine.
Right.
And I thought we were going to be receiving current updates from him
Yeah.
about the Ukraine. I don't know, he sort of just disappeared and went
Hope
melted
he-
into the woodwork or
Hope
something.
he's okay. Yeah.
But they have had an African American journalist, I can't think of his name because he appears so seldom. He's a tall, brown-skinned guy with a little beard.
Mm-hmm.
And he says pertinent things. He doesn't come off, like a jerk face or anything. But I never hear quite enough from him. and I don't know where he is. And I think to myself sometimes, why is it that the Ukrainian war against Russia is only being covered by white people, mainly men,
Right.
mainly men. Occasionally they throw a white woman in there who says a few words,
She interviews some people.
you know, but
Yeah, she interviews some.
yeah,
Right.
I like Ali Velchi's commentary. You know, I just simply love the way he gives it to you. He sounds like he's at a racetrack somewhere
On fire.
announcing the latest race, because he can talk faster than anybody I've ever known. But what these columns get into is how it is that a certain kind of spiritual apartheid enters the mainstream of American journalism, so that you only get African American journalists involved with affairs and things that are purely and only African American, but don't really have a specific kind of application to us and us alone. Because what happens to us, I think, in my mind, and it'll come out in the columns, what happens to us is what happens to the body politic of this country. We're in the middle of a writer's strike. As an African American writer who was in the union from 1972 up to today, I can tell you I have never seen in any broad way an African American perspective on how the writer's strike would affect African American writers.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, we at one point I think we had 9,000 writers and 9 African American writers, 2 Asians and maybe 1 Native American.
Yeah.
So it was an all-white organization. To their credit, Bud Schuberg and John Block and Harlan Ellison and some other left-wing people said, hey, no. This is the Writers Guild. We are writers writing about America, so we should have people who represent the stream, all of America.
Yes.
So you wind up with 10,000 writers and 10 black writers. I'm just joking. A little bit.
I know.
A few more than that, but
Right.
it still hasn't reached the point where you could say we are being equally represented in the film industry, especially. They are notoriously. I can't even name 10 African American screenwriters of what might be considered mainstream movies. If you come up with 1 or 2, then all 3 of them might be, what's his name? The director. Wow, he hasn't done anything. The movie
Spielberg?
was called,
That's Spielberg.
no. The first movie he came out with, Do the Right Thing.
Oh, okay.
See that?
All right.
See what happened?
No, I had it on my tongue, and okay.
See what happens?
I know what you're saying.
When they get off from you and you don't hear from them over a period of 2 or 3 movies.
Wes
Montgomery?
No.
Charlie Parker?
No.
Whitney Houston?
Yeah. Confusing my brain.
Ah, look at you cheating. You're getting ready to go into your Wikipedia.
Right,
And everybody who is paying attention to this is going to say, oh my goodness, you mean to tell me you couldn't remember the name of the man who came up with She's Gotta Have It? You couldn't come up with the name of the Malcolm X, who directed the Malcolm X story? Who you can't think of the name of, who came up with...
We've been out in the sun, okay? So
Are you stuck in Raising in the Sun? You couldn't come up with the man who said, Do the Right Thing? Or the man who directed Crooklyn? I think he wrote it too. The man who practically put Samuel L. Jackson right in front of us. You can't think of the man who gave us Denzel Washington and Mo Better Blues. You can't come up with the name of the man who.
Spike Lee.
I'm sorry, what's the name?
Spike Lee.
Spike Lee. My God. So.
And the similarities of his films should make you also, know who he is.
Well, he got the money to do it, and he did it. And now, he might be retired. All I'm saying is that we have been underrepresented in the mainstream.
Exactly.
And there's no doubt about that. In any case, as these columns continue,
and I'm going to cop a plea that we're driving on the freeway, went up to Hollywood today, and it's 91 today outside in sunny California where we live. And so, hey, brain freeze. It's hot. Yeah, it's hard to double think.
That is what it is. There are reasons for that, and we won't cover. Oh, wait a minute. Let me waffle on that, because in some instances we will be covering things like climate. It's not. You know what I hate to hear? I hate to hear global warming. It's global heating. It's global hotting. It's not warming. It's hot. What the hell does he? Why you keep muffling? It is global hotting.
Hotting.
How about global hotting?
Okay.
Maybe that'll make people feel a little bit more
right.
connected to the situation.
Okay, yeah.
The Arctic ice is melting.
I
know,
I know.
DeSantis is running around talking about what he's going to do to make America fascist again. His little finger of a state may disappear before his ass is able to accomplish anything.
I know.
And
Florida's sinking with all those heavy buildings.
So, having said all that, thank you, Zola, for having given me the opportunity to read the first column of the African American Times.
Yes.
I'm sorry, the African Times newspaper.
Yeah.
Published by
African Times.
and Yam.
Right.
And in succeeding sessions,
We look forward
I'm going to read a couple or more, but not too many, because it's like deja vu all over again.
This is true.
These things were written from 1996 to 1998. I wrote 2 years for him.
Whoa.
And the events that were covered, like the rediscovery of Tarzan.
Oh my. Okay.
The rediscovery of Tarzan took place recently, amongst other times, in some legislature where the speaker, whoever he was, I don't want to mention his name, actually got up and started talking about colored people again. Like, wait a minute.
I know. Do you hear yourself?
But we'll let other people deal with that. Can I sign off right now, because I want to go and get a nice cold drink?
You got it, kid. Let us sign off. Your website is www.odiehawkins.com. You're also on Amazon. And with that,
Miss